Bob,
Hey, Kimmy.
what if we talk about some of the different ways that you can go about losing weight today?
I think that's a perfect idea. 'Tis the season, right?
It is the season, and actually, yesterday was National Quitter Day
Yeah.
because the second Friday in January, they say most people are already abandoning any of their weight loss, health, and wellness goals. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because there are still leftovers around from the holidays or what, but Uh, maybe it's confusion because there are a lot of voices out there talking about lose weight this way, lose weight that way. No, let's not talk about losing weight. We only need to talk about losing fat, which, there's truth to everything that's out there. But today we're going to talk about not being so dogmatic about it. So, um, what are some of the things that you have heard or experienced? And it's like, okay, this is the way to lose weight.
Well, one of the ones that I've heard all my life is, to cut things out. Like cut out fruit if you want to lose weight. Cut out sweets, low carb. Get rid of the carbs. I've heard that a lot. You've got to move more and eat less to lose weight.
Oh, an
Uh,
all-time classic, right?
yeah.
Just eat less and move more. It's fine. That's all you've got to do.
Yeah. 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 So, and anywhere you look, especially this time of the year, there's going to be some new thing to attract people, and we've all been guilty of it before because I think that ideally we'd like to find something where we get our momentum going quickly and the momentum continues. That we see that 1 to 2 pounds of loss every week or more. Would even be great, and we want it to be relatively painless. We don't want to hurt and be miserable. So, we're looking often for something that we're not going to find. I mean, let's face it. I mean, I don't know. I've done so many weight loss plans in my life. There have been some that I was losing, but I was miserable. And so, what that tells me is you're not going to stick with it long enough to get results, you know?
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Eat less, move more. We've heard that all our lives. And it's one of those things, it's true,
yeah.
but we're always like, yeah, but how? And, we understand. I mean, there's nobody who is trying to lose weight who doesn't understand or know some way to get it off. The biggest problem is, like you said, being able to get it off and not be miserable and figure out how to continue to live in a way that
Mhm.
promotes that smaller version of ourselves. And I've been really dogmatic in the past or really emotionally tied to whatever plan I was on. And kind of this, I mean, I'm all or nothing with things. And so it's either tight adherence or I would go to, I just can't do this anymore and start doing nothing. So you and I both talked a lot over the last 5.5 years of how do we find, um, I don't know, the gear shifter for one thing, that whatever plan we're doing to be able to kind of downshift sometimes, or even shift into neutral, maybe even, kind of pull over into a rest area lookout, if you will, that whole thing of learning to pause instead of quitting. And I think we've both done a really good job of that. But kind of the next level to that is figuring out when what we've always done is no longer going to work for us. And I think that is applicable to a lot of women who are kind of at that point of perimenopause or who are postmenopausal. And the things that we've always done, because we've all been doing this for decades, kind of stop working. So you have to shift gears more often, not even just within the plan you're doing, but maybe completely doing something different from time to time. Or maybe it's just me because I get bored. But
Yeah.
uh, what are some of the things that you have done? Because I know recently you have changed some of the things that maybe um, don't fit in with what you've done historically. I mean, as somebody who worked for Weight Watchers for 35 years, points and, that was always the language you spoke when it came to weight loss. But you've thought, differently about it. It's not that you don't ever do it or don't think that there's value in it, but you have shifted gears sometimes. So what has
Mhm.
that looked like?
Well, most recently, and what I'm currently doing is, counting calories on an app and doing macros.
Okay,
And
share what app are you using? Because some people don't even know what app to use.
yeah, well, the one I'm using is not available to, uh, like, I don't think you could go to the app store and download it. It's
Oh,
with
that's right,
elevated,
because you're doing it through your fitness.
yeah,
Yeah.
elevated aesthetics. Um, so just it's with the gym in Tahlequah. I actually think it's maybe a chain that you can get a franchise perhaps, but a Christian couple in Tahlequah is who I connected with, and that's how I got started with this. But there's so many apps out there. I mean, I know the one you currently use, Carb Manager, that I had used for a long time. I think I started using it before you did, in fact, that particular app. But there's a lot of good ones out there that will help you figure your macros out, and it's easy to track on the app where you just put the food in and then it does all the macro dividing, if you will, for you. And
Yeah,
I
because
like,
we say we both find value in being able to see the macros, and now even Weight Watchers has added macros to
yeah.
their app.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of a standard way of looking at food now is
Mm-hmm.
understanding that macro breakdown. So sorry to interrupt, but
No,
uh,
that's okay.
just wanted to point out that there has been a huge shift in people understanding macros, regardless of how they choose to apply them.
Mm-hmm. The main reason I like to do macros is because I want to make sure I'm getting enough protein. And there for a while, I was just tracking protein and fiber, but now I'm also doing carbs and fats. But I like feeling like I'm getting a good balance, that I'm not too extreme with any of the macronutrients. I mean, protein's good for us, but for me, I feel like I need some carbohydrates, as a teacher, working, with my workouts at home, my weight workouts, with, when we're hiking and stuff. I mean, I just see some value to carbs. I mean, granted, not all carbs are created equally. So going for the healthier ones, but that's what I'm currently doing. But for years I did Weight Watchers, and I'm still always fascinated when they make any kind of change. That just goes back to over 30 years of being an employee. I'm waiting for my app to update right now. In fact, I've checked it every day to see if it had updated, because I know Weight Watchers has made some changes, and I'm excited to look at them. I think that from what you've told me, it sounds like they'll be really beneficial to people. But I've done all the crazy stuff, before I found Weight Watchers. And I did at least one plan after Weight Watchers that really peeled the weight off, but it was Optavia. I couldn't live on that because I was starving. I was so hungry, but man, I was losing some serious weight.
Yeah, that's kind of what I pointed out initially, that now the shift has gone from, well, hopefully in most circles, has gone from understanding that we don't just want to focus on losing weight, because you can lose the wrong weight
Mm,
and we don't want to lose muscle. And, a lot of that, the faster you lose the weight,
mm-hmm,
and, if you're not supporting it with protein and with weight training, you are going to lose muscle instead of fat. And you work really hard to put that muscle on. And muscle is, huge for longevity. So we don't want to diminish our muscle. And that's why most diet plans are going to tell you, lose weight at a slow and steady rate. Muscle is going to help keep us kind of in a higher metabolic state
mm-hmm.
and just healthier overall. So we want to protect that
Yeah.
during the weight loss process. And like I said, you can prioritize protein, but it doesn't mean you have to eat only protein. And we do need to weight train. That's one of the things that I appreciate about the way Weight Watchers is handling the GLP-1 medications. They are encouraging people to do that. So that's a positive thing. But yeah, the Optavia, it did. If you eat 1,000 calories a day or less, you're going to drop a lot of weight and you're going to drop it fast. But there are psychological things that happen when we get in that place because you feel deprived regardless of
Mm-hmm.
what program you're on. And you
So,
already talked about that's kind of, you go on a diet. What does that mean? Deprivation, right?
hmm I guess though, when you do the GLP-1, the shot or the pill that they've now come out with, it's like you're eating that possibly that low of a calorie count, like 1,000 a day or maybe less,
Yes.
but you're not hungry because of the medication. But it's,
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that when you use the shots and all, that you're encouraged to prioritize protein. I know that, but um, I don't know, getting into losing the muscle, and I don't know. Again, everyone has to choose what's right for them. No judgment here.
Exactly, because ultimately everything is a tool. I have kind of had this massive shift in my mindset. I don't go on a diet. I use different plans as tools in my own plan
Hmm
because I don't know, the fact that somebody else can change the plan on me and mess up my whole, I don't know, just rhythm,
hmm
which has happened to me over and over again. That bothered me. I'm like, I want to own my own plan, which means I need to not have this kind of mental and emotional dependence on something external for how I'm going to eat. I mean, one day I woke up and I'm like looking at different things on Facebook, and it's embarrassing how many different dieting groups and stuff I'm in, but I'm trying to stay up to date on what's going on. I try to keep my finger on the pulse of the industry that I'm in. And one thing that I noticed, there will be hundreds of comments in all of these groups. Is this okay to eat? Is this keto? Is this paleo? Is this whatever? Am I allowed to have this? And it just struck me. I'm like, how dumb is it that I have to ask somebody as a grown woman about something so simple and so basic and fundamental to human life as eating? Like, how have we made it so incredibly hard? And so it began a shift in my mindset of, all right, I've got to figure out what works for me, and not just what, but when, because I've got to shift. Going through the holidays, I enjoyed some sugar, things with sugar in it a few times. And that's not something I generally incorporate in my day to day eating because it makes me crazy as far as my appetite goes. So I have a protocol after I get through the holidays. If I choose to have that I go into a very low carb mode. Not because I think everybody should be low carb or keto or carnivore or anything like that, but because it's a tool. And for me, trying to get the genie back in the bottle when it comes to my appetite, the only way I can do that is if I have about a week or so where I go really, really low carb. And it's like it restores my sanity. And it helps me to get back to the place where I am in that pacing of eating the things that are nourishing my body instead of just wanting to reach for fudge for every other meal.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And, I know people do some fasting. There's things we can do. Again, just tools, in our toolbox. And, um, what approach that works for you might not be the best fit for me. Sometimes I've gotten ideas from you, and maybe you have from me, but it's good to talk to other people, and it's good to be well read and to know all these things. But I agree with you. Nobody should tell us, you can't have that. That makes us want it more, right? If you tell us
Absolutely.
that we can't have it. But yeah, I know what you're talking about because I'm in a particular group, and just I think it was today, someone said, well, can I have this? Is it on the yes list? And somebody commented and said, why does it even matter? You can have it if you want it, but I don't know. I mean, I think that when you commit to a plan, it's good to be committed because, you have to be careful depending on what plan you're doing. If you bring in too many of your own ideas, it could cause you to not get the results that you could have gotten if you had followed the plan, so to speak. But I mean, like you said, we've been doing this for decades. So we pretty much know how we can tweak things and still be okay. But, somebody that's listening might say, well, I just need someone to tell me exactly what to do. I want that. I want that kind of structure. And again, you got to find what works for you. Some people need that and want that. Like they want that list of have this, don't have this, you know?
Mhm. And there are a lot of great options for that.
Yeah.
Weight Watchers is great for that. You can have a lot of freedom, or you can, have some pretty tight constraints on your eating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Melaleuca, what is it, the R3?
Yeah.
Is that what?
Or
Yeah.
R2. I don't know. R2 or R3. I don't know.
Yeah, but there are several like that where, I mean, basically they give you a food list and here are
Yeah.
the foods that you eat, and there are some guidelines around it, and that's what you do
Mm-hmm.
for a couple weeks, and then that food list expands, and then you adjust based on, how you're responding.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of other things that we need to take into consideration besides just, is this going to help me lose fat? And I mentioned before with, going super low calorie. Yeah, it's gonna make you lose fat, but it's also gonna make you lose a bunch of muscle. Some days it might make you lose the will to live, because like you are so hungry. And those are things we've got to take into consideration is, you know, the way I'm eating, is it helpful when it comes to managing appetite? Because I think ultimately that is one of the biggest issues for us. That's why people don't manage to keep it off. That's, why I have struggled. That's why you have struggled. It's that appetite management because everything out there is going to work. You can pick any plan, and if you adhere to it,
Mm-hmm.
you can lose weight if you
Mm-hmm.
stick with it and just stay consistent. But the nuance of it is, is it healthy? Is it something that's really nourishing your body? Is it nourishing your mind and your emotions at the same time? Because you have those hungers too. So if all of those appetites are still out of control, you're going to have a really hard time keeping the weight off.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And we do want to, I know earlier I said, you got to find the one that works for you. And that's true. But you and I would be the first to recommend, like you've been saying, choose something that is going to nourish your body. Don't sacrifice your good health or, you know, burning muscle instead of fat. There's, we want to go about it the smart way. And granted, there's a lot of ways out there to lose weight that are not smart at all.
Yeah. But there's definitely not just one way. And any of the
Mm-mm.
ways that um, have any kind of actual health component in mind, they're all going to have the underlying advice of lean into whole foods.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's going to be there with any plan that is focusing on promoting your health. Now, whether it's carnivore, where they're like eat whole food animal products, or vegan, where it's eat whole food plant products, you can also do both of those things in a way that is not super healthy. You can be
Mm-hmm.
vegan and live on cookies and chips. So, any of the things out there you can do in a way that is potentially harmful to your health
Mhm.
or in a way that supports health. And, the foundation of that is looking at those nutrient dense foods, regardless of what type of plan you're looking at. Um, so everything out there, they're going to market themselves as this is the best way to lose weight. They'll be touting, if they had awards or whatever. But once we're over 50, I think, especially, some of the rules change. So I mentioned things working in the past, but not working now. I don't know about you, but I have definitely had to change kind of how I eat as far as the timing. Um, I have had to change how I exercise just because there's a different recovery rate. I even have to shift things up on days when I haven't slept very well. So
Mhm.
I feel like as women over 50, women who are postmenopausal, we just get so many more variables thrown in that we have to consider and try to, I don't know, just troubleshoot for ourselves. Why is this not working anymore? And what do I need to change?
Mhm. Yeah, when you said when you don't sleep well, you have to make adjustments. The first thing my mind went to is I know there's been days that I've sent you a text and said, I am just wanting to eat all the things and wanting the sugary things. And usually, when I gave it some thought, it would be, like the previous night, I did not sleep well. And we know when we don't have enough rest, our body wants more energy because we're tired. And so we do crave those things. So I have to really be intentional on those days, or it's a disaster. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. And I think that you're more into meal timing than I am. My day, it's like during the week when I'm teaching, I have to eat breakfast by a certain time or I don't get to. And I have to eat lunch at 11:30 or I've lost that little window of time. Sometimes our structure causes us to eat at certain times, but I know that it's really important for you to get good rest to have your dinner by a certain time,
Hmm.
because you don't want to eat too late. And sometimes I'm eating probably when you're in bed. I'm doing better with it, but I've not really experimented to see how it would help me with sleep or weight loss. But um, yeah, again, finding what works for you.
Yeah, and I think, if we're not afraid to experiment, one of the things I'm doing right now, and I mentioned that in my workshop this morning that I was facilitating, that one of the things that I used to do is I would wait as long as I could to eat. And it's not that I was trying to do intermittent fasting. I just knew that once I started eating, I didn't want to stop eating.
Mhm.
And so it was easier to wait until later and kind of consolidate my calories for later in the day. But when you think of it, that makes no sense whatsoever, except when you're thinking about, okay, I'm afraid I'm going to be hungry later. But from a physiological standpoint, from just straight up, what is food for? It's to fuel us. It makes no sense to wait and have all of your calories at the end of the day. You want to fuel your day, you want to fuel yourself. So I've shifted to having a greater caloric load in the mornings. And it kind of has me panicked some days because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be hungry later. But if you eat those calories earlier in the day, you have more of an opportunity to burn them off. Your body is more in a place where it's ready to utilize those calories early versus when our natural circadian rhythm is starting to kind of wind things down later in
Mhm.
the day. You're not as active. You don't need to fuel yourself heavily to get through the 6 episodes of whatever you're going to binge watch on Netflix tonight. So, just from that common sense standpoint, I've kind of had a shift in my thinking there. And I try not to eat after about 6:37 at the absolute latest because I try to be asleep by 10:30. And I want my body to kind of be in that optimal position to be able to burn fat and make the hormones and do all the things it's supposed to do while I'm sleeping and not have digestion kind of interfering with that. So, but see, you have meal timing down because, at least in the morning and the afternoon,
Hmm.
because it's kind of set for you. And I'm more kind of willy nilly on the other end of things.
Hmm.
And I probably ought to lock that in more because there are studies to show that there's benefit to just having set meal times and that your hunger will kind of regulate around that. You'll anticipate it just the way that, we all used to want a snack around 3 or 4 p.m. because that's when we always had one when we got off
Hmm.
school,
Yeah. And we do eat dinner a little earlier now. We've been more, I mean, we like on Wednesday nights, Dale leaves for Bible study. Oh, I think he's gone by 5:30 and I leave by 5:40 to go to practice for the praise and worship team. And we eat before we leave. So we're eating at 5 on Wednesday. And so some days we're eating earlier, but one reason to eat earlier is because we have the most amazing dessert slash treat at the end of the day now. Since I have a Ninja Creamy like you do, we have our protein ice cream. And so we try
Yeah.
to eat dinner and then wait a bit. And then I usually set it out on the counter to start getting soft when we're getting ready to eat. And so, yeah, that's our nightcap, if you will. We love it.
Yeah.
We're like little
Yeah.
kids. We're just so excited about it.
You find the right tools, whether the
Yeah.
tool is the plan that you're using or certain products, food items. And in this case, it's a food item tied to a kitchen tool that
Hmm.
people rave about. And I did a whole video about the Ninja Creamy. It's actually the first video that I really posted on
Hmm.
YouTube,
Yeah.
and it's horribly slow pacing. And it kind of
Yeah.
drags out, but it's worth watching just
Yeah.
because of how I talk about how you process it and some
Hmm.
tips and tricks to make it really creamy because otherwise it can turn out pretty icy. The first time I tried the Ninja Creamy and I did it according to their directions, when I got finished, I'm like, why are people raving about this thing? But if you apply a few little aftermarket tips and tricks, if you will, you can wind up with a really fantastic product that is super low calorie, super low points if you're,
Hmm.
counting points on Weight Watchers, loaded with protein, and really the flavors are amazing. I
Yeah.
don't experiment much anymore because I'm so locked into a certain flavor right now. But what are some of the ones that you've been doing? Because you've been experimenting.
Hmm. Well, the one we're having tonight is called Fruity Cereal. And it might not be for everyone. I know you said you never drink the milk from your cereal. And I,
Well, I said I would drink it so I didn't waste it, but I
well,
didn't enjoy it.
right. And I love it. I enjoy it. So, but we're having fruity cereal tonight. Last night we had, I think we had cookies and cream last night. The Premier Protein, now the fruity cereal is a Alani flavor. They make, I've seen cookies and cream and then the fruity cereal. And if people are thinking, ooh, that would be a lot of caffeine, those are the energy drinks. There's no caffeine in those particular protein shakes. But the Premier Protein, I mean, we've done banana and we put some, because you can do, add-ins, mix-ins, of course, put some pecans in there. We had like banana pecan. It was fantastic. We've had cinnamon roll. We've had just straight up chocolate. And it's amazing because I'm more of a chocolate fan than Dale is, but Dale told me he thinks that so far the chocolate is his number one favorite. He really likes that. But I've done caramel, and as you know, I've just you've ordered for me like every flavor, and I didn't get cafe latte. You probably knew why, because of the caffeine
Yeah.
at bedtime, because that one does have some caffeine. but I'm getting so many wonderful flavors like winter mint. I'm just so excited to have that. And I think it'll be fun to do the chocolate peanut butter one and the cake batter. So, really, with these protein shakes, it's an ingredient in the recipe. The sky's the limit. And I mean, it literally makes a pint of ice cream, as you know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and you have
amazing.
it all to yourself, and you don't have to feel guilty. You are actually nourishing your body with some good stuff.
Yeah. They need to have us do their ads because we're sold, right? They really need to hire us.
We are, and we find products that we like, and we really latch onto them. I'm mad at Built Bar right now, or Built Brand, for not making the bars right now. I mean, their puffs are great, but I lived by the bars.
Yeah. They're just not the same.
I
They're,
know,
I
I
mean, they're
know.
good. You're right. But the satisfaction level is just not there for us. So
Yeah. I could totally be satisfied by the puffs, and I do really enjoy them, but I would need about three of them.
same, same. I think it's because they you chew them so easily. They go down so quick, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the bars are super, super chewy. So, no matter how great of a plan you have or great tools you find, sometimes manufacturers, corporations still manage to kind of pull the carpet out from under you.
Yeah.
But
You
we
want to
find
have a
new
fit,
things.
right? You just want to have a fit and say, Why would you do that to me?
I know.
Don't
I
you
actually
know? I'm
posted,
right.
I posted, I think on their Instagram yesterday, when are you bringing the bars back?
Yeah,
I do that
good,
every so often. Yeah,
good. I should do that too to
you
help the
should.
cause.
That's right. Help the cause.
Yeah.
Anybody out there, help the cause. Ask Bill when they're going to bring the bars back.
Mm-hmm.
So, but seriously, their puffs are great as well.
Yeah.
I preferred the bars for the texture, and they had less. Well, they had fewer points if you're following Weight Watchers. They have fewer calories. If you're doing calories and macros. If you're
Mm-hmm.
doing low carb, they had less sugar and lower net carbs.
Mm-hmm.
So really, just it was a trifecta of just from a nutrient standpoint, it was better. I mean, 130 calories, 17 grams of protein. I
Yeah.
think like three net carbs, four net carbs. Anyway,
Amazing.
yeah. I should probably stop talking about it. I'm gonna be like pining away for them.
Are you
No,
out?
no, I've got a few stashed back. So
Okay. I was gonna say I could share my Christmas present with you if you're out. That
no, no,
that would hurt
um,
my heart if you were out.
no. I've still got some, but I'm having to really kind of parse them out pretty pretty methodically in the hopes that they will come out with more.
And
But
for people who don't know, they did come out with some, and we knew they wouldn't last, and so we both bought up a lot, but you bought up a whole lot. And then you
yeah,
shared with me
you bought a lot, and I bought a lot more.
because there's always more.
Yeah, this time I bought a lot more because there's not always more
There
with
you
them.
go. There's not more.
But I think that some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves, though, now is, um, instead of what is the best plan or what is ideal, because I think we get hung up on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the best thing out there? What is ideal? And or what is new? We look for novelty a
Yeah.
lot. At least some of us, we're thrill seekers with our new diet plans, so we look
Well,
for novelty.
we're wanting that honeymoon phase again.
Yes, some of us are even looking for what is the hardest, strictest thing because we feel like the greater the level of punishment,
Mm-hmm.
the greater the benefit is going to be, which is not true. Um, you know, things like 75 hard, I could do 75 hard, but then after 75 hard, I might do 75, forget everything, you know, going to that place of all or nothing. So one thing I've learned about myself by asking, certain questions like what plan works best for me, just
Mhm.
holistically. And even though I'm really competitive, I can go all in. Going all in has never, ever served me well
Mhm.
because it becomes this harsh swing of the pendulum. I go all in and then I'm just all burned out.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been
So,
there. I've been there before too. I have. I was thinking just a moment ago when you were talking that um, I think it's really refreshing. It really is when you think about how we both started the new year just continuing with what we'd been doing. Because, yes, we don't lose like we did when we were younger. It's a little bit harder. There are some more extra variables thrown in because of this time of life we're in. But neither one of us has been looking for what's shiny and new now, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
I didn't have to
that's
start a new
beautiful.
plan. I didn't have to
No,
start over.
no, same. We just picked up and continued on. Like you said, maybe at Christmas had a little extra sugar, so did I. But you went back to what works for you after a little indulgence. You did lower carb, and now you're back in the rhythm again. And but I love that we've not been desperately looking for something to follow. We just continued on, and I think the reason is because we've both found what we can live with, and we're nourishing our body. Because that's one, like I said before, with the macronutrients, that's a way to ensure that you're giving your body what your body needs. I mean, true, you could get your carbs off from simple carbs, and we don't want to do that. But you want to use wisdom. But um, what we're doing is satisfying, and it's livable. It's sustainable. I mean, we can do this for the rest of our lives, right?
Well, yeah, because this is me just daily having some sort of boundaries and guidelines for myself, but they're not always the same. So the way I live today might not be the way I even live tomorrow. But I know the different gears to shift to for
Mhm.
myself. And sometimes I get bored and I'm like, I don't want to track anything. Even though I'm a hyper tracker, sometimes I need to breathe and I might take a few days and I apply, um, okay, I'm just going to eat from certain food lists because it
Mhm.
makes it easier. I don't have to think about it. As long as I'm eating whole foods and making sure that I'm getting a serving size of, certain things that I know that I'm not going to be eating beyond what I need and I'll be nourishing my body. So yeah, I'm going to be managing. I'm going to be managing this. So from that standpoint, because my plan changes all the time because, and probably more than yours, because I get very distracted. I get bored, and one of the things I realized about myself is when I get bored, I need to mix things up or I'll quit.
Mhm.
And that
Well,
hasn't been the case for a long time, but Um, I didn't even have to get back to anything or back to a plan after eating more sugar during the holidays because that was my plan. And I gave myself permission not to go crazy, but on certain days, I gave myself permission to not have to track it, to not have to worry about, how many calories is this, but just to enjoy certain things.
mhm.
So I do have parameters on it, but it's still part of my plan even though fudge probably is not on any official plan that you would ever follow.
Mhm.
As far as, yes, we recommend that you eat fudge, but so many things work around flexibility now and are recognizing that, we all have different tolerances for things. I cannot go every single day and work I don't even try to work in sugar every day. If I have something sweet, it's going to be like the protein ice cream. It's going to be sugar free because it doesn't drive that hunger. I have discovered that I don't want to give up sugar all the time because there are a few things in life that are delightful that have sugar and I want to still experience them sometimes. But if I am interacting with sugar on a daily basis, I am hungrier and it amplifies the food noise. It's like setting up giant speakers and just blasting it. So I don't want to do that to my appetite. I don't want to make my life harder than it already is because, it's hard and it stinks to have to micromanage everything that you eat, to weigh, track, and measure things, to um, not recognize satiety cues, not even know when you're physically hungry versus when it's something else going on. So there always has to be this external management. It's frustrating as all get out, but I think part of kind of coming to peace with doing this is recognizing, okay, I do have a choice. I can either let my health and weight get out of control, or I can find a way to balance it to where I can still have some of these things, but um, not drive myself crazy with them. It doesn't have to always be deprivation, but it can't always be just have whatever I want, whenever I want, in whatever quantity. And some days I just have to grieve that. And I know that sounds ridiculous. It sounds petulant, but some days I do. I grieve the fact that I have to think about this all the stinking time. But that's the reality if I don't want to weigh over 300 pounds again.
Yeah. Well, I guess if it wasn't this, it'd maybe be something else. I mean, in this world we're going to have trouble, right? But Jesus has overcome the world, and so one day we won't have to deal with this at all. Um, it has brought us some joys, though. We found each other because of our connection with Weight Watchers, right?
We did. We met on Zoom and
Yeah,
we've been talking every single day since. It's been a five
yeah,
and a half year conversation.
exactly. And a lot of people have crossed our paths because of both of us being health and wellness coaches, and it's provided ministry opportunities. So, as much as I, like you, wished it was something that, like there's been many times I thought I wished I could eat more like a normal person and not ever have to really give it any thought. But when I've tried that approach, it's, you know, caused me to go the wrong direction with my weight. So, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, but um, I don't know. I'm glad we don't have to do it alone. We have each other to lean on, right? Because we've
Absolutely.
been accountable with each other, sending the numbers at the end of the day. And um, yeah, I mean, in a way, it's just kind of become second nature. It's just who we are. And, a lot of people at school will, talk about how, oh, you eat so healthy. And, my boss always says, I need to just follow you around all day and just only eat what you eat. And so, maybe it's our chance to, be a good example for other people. And, I know we don't always get the outcomes that we would hope for, but like you said, we could weigh way more than we do now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. If
that's a
I
win.
wasn't constantly managing my weight, and what has happened every other time, I'm like 11 and a half years into when I just was like, I've got to do something. And this time is going to be different. I will never quit. So there's never been a time that I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not managing my weight at all, which I've done that a lot in my life, which is why I've yo-yo dieted and, had to lose over 100 pounds so many times. But I was like, that's not going to happen again. But, it's still hard. There are still those times where I have to figure out, okay, how do I not quit? How do
Mm,
I, but it's to the point now that even when I think about it, I remember how badly I felt.
yeah.
I remember the pain of it. So, they say you have to choose your pain. And I guess, I mean, maybe that is true while we're here. I know that's felt that way in this journey. And the pain of being as heavy as I was and as sick as I was as a result of it,
Mm,
most of the time I would say that that pain is worse than whatever the psychological and emotional pain is of not being able to just eat freely. Which,
Hmm.
saying that out loud, I mean, it makes it sound so stupid. Um, but I know I'm not the only one that struggles with that.
Hmm.
A
Yeah,
lot
I've
of
heard it.
people, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I say a lot of people, I think, would resonate with me saying that there are days where just the level of appetite you have, and you know it, whether it's physical or whatever, that there is almost this level of suffering
Mhm.
involved in this. And you feel guilty for using that word because there's so much suffering in this world. And you're like, really? I'm whining about this. But our own pain and suffering isn't justified by comparison to somebody else's. I mean, it's our experience, and it is something that is a huge struggle for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And I think it's okay to, kind of grieve that, but then put it into perspective and then decide, okay, what is worth it though? What are you willing to do? Is it worth it to go through this to avoid type 2 diabetes, to avoid a heart attack, a stroke, or, whatever health condition that, disease process that might come up if you don't make the choice to kind of keep the reins pulled back. So, yeah, I'm not where I want to be, but I do know that the things that I've done in, keeping at least 80 pounds off for 11 years now, that I know that that has changed the course of my life. That's added years to my life. And like I said, it's added people to my life that have made a huge difference, like you. But it's also changed the direction of my health. I think that I've added years to my life, and I have added life to my years.
Mhm.
So,
I love that. I've always heard, you talk about your pain. I've heard it referred to as choose your hard because some days are just simply hard. But when you mention the, diabetes and heart problems and all the things that the consequences of not suffering through when it is a hard day, we know well, and plus just feeling miserable in our own skin, those things are hard too. So, yeah, you got to choose your heart and decide, is it worth it? So, yeah, you were speaking the truth. I was thinking earlier how, when something new comes along, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon and see if it'll work for them. It's so funny to me because we've all been guilty of this, but, when somebody has lost weight, and maybe you haven't seen them in a while and you're like, oh, wow, you have lost so much weight. And what's the first thing we ask? What do we
how'd
want
you
to
do
know?
it?
How'd you
How'd you
do it?
do it?
Yeah. And that's just how we all are. I mean, and honestly, if somebody said, "Oh, have you seen the new Woman's World?" I did this, what she did. Oh, I would totally be curious. Although I know I have found a good fit for me, I would be so curious. I would be lying if I said I wouldn't be curious.
Well, I mean, it could be something that you rotate into your toolkit.
Yeah,
I love Women's World. They made me a professional dieter.
love
I got I got paid $175 to do one of their diets.
I want to do that.
I know. I We should see if they're still doing it. That would be fun. Because I mean, it's just a week. You can do anything for a week. But I want to go back to, you talked about choosing your heart, and some days, like honestly, some days the just that drive to eat, or the craving. Some days, I think if some of us, a lot of us are honest, I mean, I'll speak the quiet parts out loud. There are days that in the moment where I feel like I want to gnaw my arm off, where there's just so much discomfort over a craving or something. In those moments, I'd be like, this is what I choose. I choose food in this moment. And I think that's going to be the reality sometimes. But if we can choose that less often, I mean, that's growth. We don't have to be perfect in this. It is a process. And even people who seem to be perfect in how they've got things dialed in, they are still going to have moments where they overeat. They're going to still have times of enjoyment and indulgences with food because that's a fun part of life. It just is. But you've got to find the right balance that allows you to still walk in a place of health and wellness
Yeah.
and just not let it consume you all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not good for us to strive for perfection anyway. We know we don't want to let perfect be the enemy of good. So there's going to be times when we just say, right now I'm going to choose this, and we need to not shame ourselves or pile on a lot of guilt or rake ourselves over the coals because we know that doesn't help anything at all. Um, but it's not like we're robbing a bank or something. We just, had an indulgence. I will say, and of course, I'm revisiting the book Made to Crave for at least the third time. And for anybody that doesn't know, it's written by Lisa Turkhurst, and it's a really good book to read. But she points out that anytime we're having a craving, and she will say, if you're hungry, then you need to eat. And I know what you said, and it's so true. Sometimes it's hard to know, is this true physical hunger or is it emotional hunger? Is it, you know, something else? What am I really feeling here? It's hard to differentiate. But when we're having those intense cravings, crying out to God, which I know you've done many times, just praying and quoting scripture, because sometimes I feel like Satan is taunting me with the cravings. Don't you feel like sometimes it's like he's at work trying to, get you where he feels you're weakest, perhaps? I don't know.
I think it's always what he does. And he's always going to go back to that place. He's going to, even if you won in that moment last time, he's always going to come back and try again. So
Yeah.
that's why, we have to continually resist on
Mm-hmm.
certain things. And I do want to make a point here that it's not about the food. It's not about what food you're eating. It's not that you have to always resist sugar or always resist pizza or whatever it is. But one thing that kind of came out of my mouth once in a workshop, and I was like, wow, that's kind of an aha moment for me, is it's not about the food that you eat, it's about how you are in that moment. Why are you choosing it? Are you choosing the food or is
Mm-hmm.
the food choosing you? And that goes back to the biblical principle of it being kind of a state of the heart. If I am in just complete discomfort and an emotional mess and in being driven to the food and the consumption of the food is what's consuming me instead of me just making a choice and consuming the food, those are two different things. It's two different situations, and it's not about the food. Because
Mm-hmm.
I can make a plan to enjoy some pizza one day and do it within my boundaries. And I could even have, 4 or 5 slices that I had managed to fit into my week because that's okay. But if it's a moment where I've already eaten way past what I needed to in a day and I am just seeking some sort of comfort from the food, and then I eat 5 pieces of pizza, and then I go on to make chocolate chip cookies. Don't ask me why I use that example, but we got to figure out what's going on in our heart because it's not the action that's necessarily the problem. It's
Right.
how we are when we are engaging in that action. Because there's a time and a place for feasting. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay for us to enjoy food. We just can't feast with it every single day, and
Right.
we definitely don't want to let it control us.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Amen. That'll preach.
I think it should maybe.
Well, I love what I'm doing right now. Not saying I won't, do something different, a few months down the road, but I'm in a good place, and like you said, we have flexibility. We can playing some splurges. And although you still count calories and macros, I do know what you said is true, that some days you do lower carb and some days do more of a balance. But I feel like we've both found something that works for us for the time being. And we both know that boundaries are good. Dale has recently dropped 10 pounds, and the only boundary he has in place is to not eat sugar. And he's choosing whole, healthy foods. So he is doing that, but he's not tracking anything. Uh, so he has less boundaries in place than I do. And of course, he's a guy. There's that. Sorry, guys. But he's doing really well. And so he's found something that's working for him. And that's what we all have to do. But, um, we want to be healthy. We want to be happy. We want to have a long life. As long as the Lord will let us be here and do his work and do his will, that's our heart's desire. And so we aim to take care of ourselves through health and our own health and wellness programs and plans, if you will. And it feels good to be on this path. It really does.
Yeah. So just to kind of put a little bow on it, I think one thing that'll really help a lot of people is if you ask yourself, why have I chosen the plan that I'm on? What works for me? What doesn't? Is there something I can change about it? Um, am I controlled by the plan or am I controlling the plan? Like you want to make it your own. Um, am I completely depriving myself or am I making a choice to not have something because of a benefit it provides? Like I'm not depriving myself of sugar. I choose to not have it because of how it impacts me on a regular basis. And there's a difference. There's a difference between deprivation and making a choice to not include something. So if you make a choice that you know is right for you and is good for you, then it's not about deprivation anymore. Nobody is telling you you can't have something. You are setting a boundary for you. And that's why it's important to own it. And you don't have to put a bunch of pressure on yourself. If there's something that, um, you have an old pattern, like watch for patterns. If you have an old pattern that you're like, why do I keep doing this? Keep asking until you can actually answer that question. Be like, well, why do I keep doing this? What are the circumstances around it? What is my emotional state? What is my mindset? And figure out where you might need to change how you think about some things. Sometimes you don't need to change the plan. You just need to change yourself within it. Make a few little tweaks. Um, not be so severe with yourself and realize that really, there's no way to blow it unless you quit. We've got to just keep approaching this with curiosity and honestly do as little as you can to still get the outcome you want. So many of us, like I said, are used to doing the all or nothing kind of thing. And if we would just do a little bit of something and have done that for the last 20, 30 years, a lot of us would be in a completely different place. If I could go back and tell 20 something year old me anything, that would be it. Stop living in a place of extremes. Stop catastrophizing things. If you overeat, go, so what? It was one meal and go right back to the normal pattern. Don't starve yourself the next day. Just go right back to nourish your body. Get the things that are good for you and then eat the things that you just think are good kind of on top of that, but don't go crazy, you know? I feel like if I knew then what I know now, I think the last 30 years of my life would have looked a whole lot different and it wouldn't have been such an all consuming thing. And I'm still trying to make it where it's not an all consuming thing. I sent you a deal on Instagram today. I think I sent it to you through the messaging thing on Instagram. But I took a screenshot of one thing that I want to read. I thought it'd be a good way to close us out today. I sat here in my office and cried. I was waiting for my new computer to update so we'd actually do the podcast. And so I was just scrolling and reading things. in between prompts. And this woman was talking about how so many women later in their lives are still just so focused and consumed by this weight loss thing. And there were a lot of different examples in the post, but the one that I took the screenshot of, it says, I work at an assisted living and I will never forget a 95-year-old woman apologizing while I was helping her change for being so fat and disgusting. She was everybody's favorite. We'd argue about who would help her to get to bed because we all wanted to spend time with her. Her husband, who was 97, and they'd been together 72 years, would get so upset when she'd talk like that. She died of COVID close to 2 years ago now, and she was in her hospital bed talking about how she was sad that she would be fat in her coffin. I mean, that just hit me. And there were other stories about people talking about their mom who, at 80 years old had cancer, and she was just so happy that she was finally thin, and at least I can die thin. And I don't know, we get consumed by it, and like I said, I have been my whole life, but it's like we're waiting for a certain number on the scale or to look a certain way in the mirror to be okay with ourselves, and we've got to figure out how to do it now. um, Anytime I say something around you, you get on to me, but I know my daughter does too. If I mention anything, she's like, "Oh, mom," because she doesn't see me that way. She doesn't look through that lens. And so, I mean, maybe we learn how to let some of that go, because I think that's the heaviest weight that we all carry. Maybe if we let some of that go, it would be easier. Um, to just do this kind of inch by inch. You remember the old thing we used to say at Weight Watchers, inch by inch, it's a cinch,
Yeah.
but mile by mile, it's a trial.
Yeah.
And we just try to go too hard. We try to make it the center of everything, and it doesn't have to be. And so, yeah, maybe that's a new direction to go for the new year. Do you have anything else to add to that, Bob? I think that's about all I have to add to the conversation tonight. What about you?
Well, just a reminder to everyone to pray and ask God, what would you have me do? Because He's the one who, He created us and He knows what's best for you. So seek His guidance. Ask Him to help you to find the right plan, to the right tools, just to help you to find your way on this path. And you talking about being consumed with this, it just made me think of how there's more to us than just our health and wellness journey. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we named the podcast More to Us, because we're like, there is a whole lot more to us
Yeah.
than this. And we have so many more topics of conversation, and we will get to them. That doesn't have to be tonight because there's always more.